History, most stupidest inventions.
Invention number 1, the baby cage.
Hey, how you doing, love mama? Let me whisper in your ear. Tell you something that you might like to hear. Got a sexy ass body.
I'm gonna repeat, what an exotic cat.
Back in the 1930s, Londoners were obsessed with the idea that city babies weren't getting enough fresh air. But instead of, taking the child for a walk in a park and touch some grass, some absolute idiot decided the move was to shove the infant into a wire mesh basket and dangle them over the edge of a high-rise apartment. It looked exactly like a chicken coop for toddlers, suspended 150 feet in the air by a few rusty bolts with hope and dreams. The design was marketed as a way to air out your baby to prevent rickets and promote health, ignoring the fact that a strong gust of wind or a particularly obesity-looking pigeon could turn your nursery into a tragedy. These cages were bolted to the outside of window frames, and mothers would just slide their kids into the wire mesh so they could play with their toys while suspended over a bustling city street. The practice actually gained enough traction that the Chelsea Baby Club distributed them to members who lived in flats without gardens. Imagine walking home from work and having to dodge falling pacifiers and the judgmental stares of infants hanging from the 10th floor. Thankfully, the popularity of the baby cage plummeted after World War II, mostly because people finally realized that toddlers shouldn't be treated like air conditioning units.
Invention number 2.
If you think your noise-canceling headphones are a bit much, you haven't seen this monstrosity from 1925. Invented by Hugo Gernsback, this was a giant, solid wood helmet designed to help writers focus by eliminating all outside distractions. It looked like a medieval executioner's mask crossed with a deep-sea diving mask, and it functioned about as well as it looked. The helmet was completely airtight to prevent sound from entering, which meant you would literally suffocate while trying to finish your poetry if it weren't for one small detail. It had to be connected to an external oxygen tank. Imagine being so bad at focusing that you have to cosplay as a submarine captain just to write a grocery list. The front of the helmet featured 2 tiny glass eye slits that were painted black except for 2 small circles, forcing the wearer to look only at the paper in front of them. It was basically the ultimate do not disturb sign, but with the added risk of accidental carbon monoxide poisoning if your tank ran low. Gernsback, who is ironically known as the father of science fiction, actually posed for photos in this thing. The isolator failed because most writers realized that being alive was more conducive to their work than being silent and unconscious. But before we move on to the next mechanical nightmare, if you're enjoying these tales of human stupidity, hit that subscribe button. Subscribe now, or I'm gonna touch you. Come on. You know you want to.
Invention number 3, the automatic tip-top hat.
This shit was created in 1896 by James C. Boyle. It was the peak of lazy gentleman technology. In the Victorian era, etiquette was everything, and a man was expected to tip his hat to every lady he passed. Apparently, the physical labor of moving your arm 3 inches was just too much for the elite. So Boyle invented a motorized rig that lived inside the hat. When the wearer bowed their head slightly, a clockwork mechanism would trigger, causing the hat to lift itself up, rotate in a polite arc, and then settle back down. It was clunky, heavy, and required you to balance a series of gears and springs on your skull. If the mechanism jammed, you'd be stuck with your hat hovering mid-air like a confused UFO. It was even designed to work while your hands were full, so you could carry your groceries and still be a gentleman through the power of retard science. Unsurprisingly, the public decided that using their hands was significantly less embarrassing than wearing a vibrating, clanking hat that might fly off into the gutter at any moment.
Invention number 4, the laryngophone.
This was a throat microphone. Yep, you heard that right. From 1929, that supposedly allowed you to talk on the phone without using your mouth. You just pressed a vibrating plate against your larynx, and the device would pick up the vibrations of your vocal cords. The idea was to eliminate background noise for pilots or workers in noisy factories, but in reality, it just eliminated the having a f***ing sensible conversation part of the phone call. Because it didn't pick up the movement of your lips or tongue, you mostly just sounded like a swarm of angry bees trapped in a tin can. looked like a leather choker with a gadget attached, making every businessman in the late 20s look like they were about to head to a very specific kind of underground club.
The device was fucking bulky, like me of course. Uncomfortable, and often left the user with a sore neck and a frustrated person on the other end of the line. While throat mics actually exist today for specialized military use, the 1929 version was a literal pain in the neck for anyone who tried to use it for a casual chat.